SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado. Programang tatalakay sa kapangyarihan ng serbisyo sibil. SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado. Programang hihimay sa kapangyarihan ng pamalang lokal. SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado. Programang maglalapit sa pamalan at mamamayan. SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado. Kikilos ang barangay para sa bayan, edukasyon, kalusugan, trapiko, basura at iba pa. SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado. Tatalakay sa mga problemang napapanahon, problemang hahanapan ng solusyon. At ngayon, ang inyong mga lingkod, De Leon Gomez, SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado. This program is supported by the National Kidney and Transplant Institute, the Philippine Red Cross, Parenting Foundation, and the Metro Manila Council.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Will today be a moon day when we think of the week that was? When over the weekend, we had the joy of being with family and friends. Could also be a sad weekend with the passing of those we love and cherish. I specifically mention the mother of Aida Paez Beltehar of the Philippine Red Cross, who died over the weekend. Of course, we mourn the passing of relatives and friends. The records of those who passed away due to COVID-19 continue to be staggering, although we are happy somehow our situation is not as bad as others. This is important in our exercise of the art of mindfulness. Thus today, in SOS, Serbisyo, Ora-Mismo, Sigurado, we draw strength from Senator Nikki Coseteng to help us, of course, see the public radar on food situation. In this effort, we continue to be unstoppable, the Red Cross way. Actually, ang pinafollow up natin, we had already known that we will have former DTI Secretary, Undersecretary Ernie Ordonez, and we're waiting for him. We also have former Congresswoman Cecilia Chavez of Butil Party List. May expect na mag-join din tayo. And of course, isa pa yung waiting din for the confirmation of Congressman Nick Briones of AGAP Party List. Pero itong tatlo na ito, I understand from Johnny, wala pa dito. Kaya sisimulan muna namin ni Senator Nikki yung mga pangyayaring recently na nakaka-apekto sa buhay ng mga Pilipino, lalo na yung mga nasa syudad. So welcome muna, Senator Nikki. Sabihin mo yung mga damdamin ng nagdaan na linggo. Go ahead.
Thank you, Cora. It's always nice to see you and nice to be on your show. Thank you for the invitation. Before I start, I'd like just to give you a little bit of information. There's a fire going on along the Pasig River on the Mandaluyong side, near the bridge, is Rockwell Pantagon Bridge.
Yung condominium mo doon banda.
There's a fire going on now. Across the Pasig River in the Mandaluyong side.
Okay.
So I hope that maybe the
firefighters, yes,
would hear this announcement, because it just started like just a few minutes ago. I can still see the smoke billowing, no? So there's a fire going on. It's right along the Pasig River.
Alam mo, ang fire vulnerability talaga pag mainit. Ayan na si Ernie.
Hello. There was a blast. There was a blast just now. There was a blast just now. Maybe something must have ignited by this fire.
Pero Mandaluyong side yon, ha?
On the Mandaluyong side of the Pasig River, there's a fire going on. I hope the firemen will, immediately address this issue.
Yes.
Hi,
Okay.
Ernie. How are
Hey,
you?
hey, hi. You and Cora look lovely.
Thank you. Thank you.
An, pakisabi kay
Cora,
Kuya, nandiyan yata
Cora
si
is here.
Jana.
Oh, hi, Johnny.
Nag-aayos pa ako ng ano.
Yeah. Cora, the subject matter today is agriculture. I said we cannot talk about agriculture unless you invite Ernesto Ordonez
Ernie.
to come with us.
Yes.
Ernie. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think
The guru,
yes.
the guru of Alianza Agricultura.
You know,
Tama?
I'm in the industry, right? But as farmers are having such troubles, I moved to agriculture. Yeah, but as Cora knows me, I'm the palenque guy, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, then I became
So,
secretary flagship with Ramos. No? He made me flagship secretary. And so when I was there, I saw what was happening with agriculture. So anyway, that's it. That's it. I had two master's degrees and one doctorate from America, from Yale and NYU. But when I came back, they said, "You want to help farmers? Go to Los Baños." So I was the oldest student in UP Los Baños. I studied agriculture.
Yeah.
So where I am now, yes.
and many countries sent their students to us to study agriculture, and now their agriculture sector is booming, and it seems like we have a lot of catching up to do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because of corruption.
Yeah.
Well, what else is new? Anyway, yeah, I think the food issue is going to be quite critical this year.
Yes.
Not just because there was a year and a half almost of a lockdown, but more importantly, supply chains are
Production,
affected,
yeah.
and the price of fertilizer has gone up, the price of coal has gone up 5 times over, and so many other things that are going to mean higher prices for food. And I hope that production can catch up, because I understand that many other countries from which we are importing food may decide one day that they're not going to sell us food anymore because they need it for themselves. And our exchange rate has also lost the money has lost its value. I think now we're hitting 52.50 or 52.39 or something like that per dollar. And before it used to be 49. So you can imagine that's already a lot of add-on, to the
big
to the
lift.
importation. Yeah, so whether we're manufacturing domestically using imported raw materials, or whether we're trying to produce ourselves, but we can't maybe get a handle on the price of fertilizer. So I think Ernie would be in the better position to give us the details and maybe how hopefully we can survive it.
Address. Yes.
Because then, of course, it's going to breed other issues. No, you have a security problem, you have a law and order problem that can spring out of a food crisis. It's not just food remaining in food, no, but it can spill on to many other things. Yeah. So Ernie, I'm glad you made it. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all our listeners and viewers. Thank you, Cora, for inviting. Johnny, thank you also.
I just want to add, at this very moment, we're facing a very critical decision. The regional RCEP, they call it, the regional cooperation and partnership is being discussed in the Senate right now. And I would like to let you know that there's been a lot of misinformation. For example, what happened is that when we were going to the final stages, they removed the International Trade Committee. So for 2 years, we're not allowed to speak. And then all of a sudden, we find out it's going to be ratified the next day in the Senate. So we raised the howl, right? And we said, this is really ridiculous. So what happened is we were able to defer the Senate decision before. We were able to defer it, but today they're taking it up again because they want to show that they're going to pass it with this administration, right? So they're really doing things. But we're trying to fight it. We want the next government to decide that so that we at least study it. But it was really bad. And when I heard them say that there was consultation, I said that's really fake news, because there's not only no consultation, they abolished the committee, so we could not talk. I mean, that is really what upsets me. Why do they have to not tell the truth, right? So that's what we're doing right now. And you're right, Nikki. What's happening is that we've got to stop this idea of free trade. First of all, for information, there is really no free trade, because the other countries say there's free trade, but they put all kinds of barriers. And then we were really naive. We open ourselves. And unlike Vietnam, that would be careful, we just open ourselves without preparing our people. So when RCEP came, we said, let us not go through WTO again. Because WTO, what happened, we opened it up and we didn't prepare. So we got crushed instead of They promised us increased jobs. We lost jobs. They promised us more exports. We're now the only country in Southeast Asia, that's import dependent. Everybody's exporting except us, and yet they said that we'll export, etc. So anyway, that's just my brief take. I just wanted to let you know that RCP is being discussed at this very moment.
Yeah. Ang RCEP or RCEP means Regional Comprehensive Economic Program. That means open trade agreement between countries. So kanya-kanya tayong agreement, no, 'di ba? We're not subjected to an overarching reach of another country telling us where we should trade. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Ernie?
Well, let's define this. No, RCP is an expanded WTO. What's WTO? WTO,
World trade.
World Trade Organization, was a time when they said, let us open our borders. This was good for developed countries and bad for developing countries. But Vietnam knew this, so they prepared. They kept barriers up. We just opened up. What RCP? It is the same thing, but it's opening up even more, right? Even more. So my argument is that the thing they should have done in WTO, which
Sport.
we did not do, made us suffer. And now we're going through it again. So what we said, just to let you know, no, you mentioned Alianza Agricultura, yes, but Alianza Agricultura is the farmers and fishers, but we took the initiative of combining with two other big sectors. No? So the other two big sectors are the agribusinessmen and the science and academia. And with this combination, we have a united stand now saying that we must make sure that four conditions should have open up, because we're opening up. And they told me, but those conditions, that it's been there a long time, precisely because if we don't take the chance now to put it up, they'll continue with this abuse. And the one that will maybe strike Nick and you most is this rampant smuggling. And basically, I just want to let you know a success story. Bureau of Customs is considered one of the most corrupt, correct? And in fact, it is really killing us, this smuggling, right? Because we don't mind importing, but they should at least follow our laws, which they're not doing. And once a secretary told me, you cannot stop smuggling, nor can you measure it. I said, actually, I meet in the office next door. This is Secretary of Finance. And the chairman was one of his assistant secretaries. And I said, it's easy to measure smuggling. You just find out how much they tell you, they give you, and you tell us how much you receive. The different.
Yeah.
And you know, when they did this, it was the time of Gora Arroyo. Cora, you know about this, no?
Yeah.
We created a thing. It was cabinet oversight. But I said, unless you're private sector, nothing will happen. There's what you call, honor among thieves or intertestamental courtesy. They don't want to tell on each other. And no one's watching customs. But we came in there as for agriculture. Someone was for industry. And we met every month. All of a sudden, customs that had anything they wanted, all of a sudden they're confronted with this private sector ordonez and the public sector guy. And we like the board, we catch them, we meet them every month. And in fact, they're confronted with 4 undersecretaries and others before they're all by themselves. Maybe watched by Secretary of Finance who really doesn't watch them. And so there are 4 departments, namely agriculture, trade, finance, and justice. And they have to meet every month. And for God's sake, those 2 private sector people are there watching. So we cut the corruption, the smuggling by 25%, right? We cut it. And then they abolished us. I got angry. I said, why? And everybody could not tell me. And then I went to the chair. It was Angie Reyes. Angie was the secretary. I said, why? I said, Malacanang. So Malacanang. Because we caught basically a very top person. They abolished us. We resumed it during Pinoy, no? And then we stopped by 31%. But when Five Don came in, he abolished us again. So it went up again. As we won 25%, and then we won 31%. Both times they abolished us because we were too successful. And now I want it back, and they won't do it. So I said, well, you don't do it, so we don't like RCEP. Because, so that's the thing right now with 4 conditions. So that's what's happening at this very moment. They're debating it right now. And they said, we also said that, you got to think of the farmers, because as you know, I know industry even more than agriculture. I headed cement. After I left government, I did cement in 6 countries, right? And I know industry extremely well. But industry, they're made up of guys who have the connections, who are smart. agriculture have no connections. They're poor. When they talk, they're considered stupid and all that. And therefore, I put my stake with them. They're very bright, but they're not trained in the economics way, etc., etc. Even the technology, they're not getting the right technology. They're very bright, but you don't give them the correct information. They cannot do much. So, Nikki, I agree with you. No, we got to look at agriculture, and actually, we cannot blame the farmers. They're not given the right information, the right help, and that's why we really have to really ramp it up, especially with other countries not giving us products anymore because they have to take care of themselves, right? So we've got to be more internal looking, and really governance is the issue.
Yeah, I think as far as what to do is concerned, no, you, Ernie, and your group and many others like-minded know exactly what to do. Now the question is, does government want to do it?
Yes.
I have a sneaky suspicion that government does not want an improvement in people's lives. Why? The very people who get themselves into office thrive under these circumstances. If this is the way you can get elected, why do you want to change it? You change things, people have better incomes, people are better educated, you might not win again. They might have a different criteria. So why do you want to change things? I mean, that's just being suspicious. But I think it's well worth, putting some time into studying this kind of behavior. When you talk of smuggling, I'm one that's quite familiar with it.
Oh, yes.
You know very well
Yes.
the issue of marijuana tiles.
Yes.
Marijuana manufacturing was established by my late father, Emerson Coseteng.
Yes.
It is a factory that was established in Pasig, Rosario, Pasig, at that time. And that came from an original Filispano ceramics, Malinta, Polo, Bulacan. Now, when we established that factory, the dollar was 3 pesos and 90 centavos to $1. By the time we started paying the loans, it was already like 16 pesos to $1.
Wow. Yeah.
So you can imagine what kind of products you must produce or how much volume you must produce to be able to pay for that kind of an exchange rate. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is eventually smuggling came into the picture. I remember Jess Aranza. You remember Jess Aranza?
Yeah.
And Ronnie Concepcion and these guys, they had a theory of finance. And I said, oh, I know Gary because, Gary is very intelligent and he was a colleague in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
He represented Negros Oriental and I represented Quezon City at that time in the same House of Representatives. And I tell you, I thought that even as Secretary of Finance, his hands were tied. I remember my uncle telling me the reason why they could not stop smuggling kasi wala daw timbak. Kasi wala daw tao magbubukas ng container to inspect the containers. That was their stupid excuse, okay? One. And then my uncle says, no problem. Wala nang bukasan ng container. Timbangan na lang. So we Mariwasa donated the weighing scale to make timbang the containers. Because tiles are not like toys. Tiles are heavy. You have 20 tons in one container. So, obviously, any container that's 20 tons, open it will be tiles. Diba? Now, they were giving, what do you call this? Declarations for toys. Tiles were being smuggled into the country by people who were declaring them as toys.
Toys, yeah.
No matter what you do, one container of toys will never total 20 tons. Toys are airy, they're plastic, they're not, very light. But they were using the same. And when they already had their actual declaration for tiles, they were using the same declaration to import as much as they wanted. Instead of just one declaration for one importation, they would use the same permit to import as much as they like, So, I actually told Gary, who's still a friend of mine, a very good friend, we still communicate by text message up to now. He's still a very good friend of mine, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. I told him, Gary, if you want to stop smuggling, All it takes is 2 minutes. A phone call to Malacanang. The guy in Malacanang has to say to the smuggler, tigilan nyo yan ngayon. The minute he says that, smuggling completely stops. You don't need policemen, you don't need the army, the navy, the coast guard, you don't need all of that. That's one. Malacanang just has to make a phone call and say, stop it, and it will stop. If he doesn't say that, then money changes hands. Maybe it reaches Malacanang, who knows? Or somebody from Malacanang, who knows? But it will not stop if Malacanang does not stop it. Second, people at that time, I don't know if they still do it now, saw that computerization was one way to minimize smuggling because everything is done impersonally. No human intervention. Just all computers. We put the data in there. Okay. So what would they do? They'll bash the computer. Sirain mo yung computer para mano-mano na naman tayo lahat. Diba? So when we had the timbangan there, the excuse, bakit hindi tinitimbang ang container? Wala ho na sa payroll na item na taga-timbang. Kaya hindi namin pwede timbangin. So my uncle says, no problem. Magpapadala na lang ako dyan ng tao, taga-timbang.
Yeah.
Di ba? Yun lang pala problema, wala kayong item para sa magtitimbang eh. So kung ayaw talaga nila, kung gusto talaga nila palusutin lahat ng smuggling, they will look for every excuse so that smuggling flourishes. Di ba? Now, the other thing about smuggling also is, pag nahuli yung item na ini-smuggling, na sinasmuggle, pinapalabas yan sa bidding. So the same people who bought it will bid it for it at a low price, and the goods revert back to them. So I said, you really want to stop smuggling, whether it's food, whatever it is, you sink it down to the bottom of the sea. Then the guys who are funding this operation will completely stop. Kasi, hinulog mo na sa ilalim ng dagat yung pagkain. Sabi nila, sayang yung pagkain. Ano ba ang gusto ninyo? Tigilan ng smuggling? O kung nahihinayang kayo sa pagkain, ituloy na lang yung smuggling? Ganun ba yun? Diba? So you have to decide. Government has to decide. Now, if you decide you want to stop smuggling, kahit na candy yan, biscuit yan, prutas yan, kung ano man, kung smuggled yan, hindi kayo nagdedeklara ng tama o hindi kayo nagbabayad ng buwis, ihulog nyo sa dagat, pabayaan nyo mabulok doon, titigil yung nag-i-smuggling. Kasi walang mangyayari. Pero kung siya din ang mananalo sa bidding, siya din ang magbibid, sa kanya din mapupunta, siya rin ang kikita pag tininda ulit, hindi mo matitigilan na smuggling. Hindi mo magagawa yun.
You're absolutely
That's just
right. Well, I'm personally involved because there were 3 court cases against me, by the smugglers. They went to court. And actually, of course, I won all the cases. And in fact, the Commissioner of Customs wanted to stop one of my raids. Customer Commission said, I want Ordonez to stop the raid because I talked to them for the raid. And so the finance person said, Ordonez is the vice chairman of that smuggling. You must let him continue. So we continue. So and then the people who wrote affidavits to defend me in court were told to withdraw their affidavit so that I could stand in jail, right? But anyway, the bottom line is this. We want to do that, and how long does it take to change them? So, Vicky, I'm really fighting for this, no? If there is a meeting every single month, which we did, by customs reporting to public and private sector, and I'm one of them, and 4 undersecretaries, all of a sudden there's transparency. Because now if you complain, you'll never hear a response. And that's what I did in a Senate hearing. I was asked by Soto and Lacson. I said, what happened? Well, sabi ko, I wanted something and I got a response. And so I wrote a letter to an assistant secretary. Dominguez saw the letter and called the commissioner and said, you call Ernie. 1 year na siya naghintay. No? And then when he called me, I said, is it true Dominguez saw my letter and called you? Told you to talk to me? He said, yeah. Why you talk to me? Oh, because I talked to someone else. In other words, if there is no transparency, there's no accountability. No, nothing will happen. But with this particular structure, which meets them, and then with media behind us, they must answer. Because right now, they don't answer, nobody cares. So with this, and that's one of my demands. And this RCEP, I said, just do that, and we'll probably, be a little happier. And they haven't even started to do it, and it's quite disgusting, actually. Actually, governance in this country is quite disgusting. And you said you're being suspicious. Actually, you're being accurate. They do want stupid people so they can win the elections, no? But we cannot. Well, Nikki, I derived my inspiration from you. You fought. I remember the The steel bar means the
Yes.
induction furnace factories. I know you're fighting them, no? And so I admire you continuing to fight. But for me, we've got to solve it through systems because one by one takes a long time. And this transparency and accountability is going to be a key. But then we're going back to agriculture. Do you know why I love agriculture? Because, I was with Xerox Corporation, 8 years multinational. I ran cement in 6 countries, etc. And why do I do agriculture? Because agriculture, they're poor and it's so easy to help them. My doctor is in the transfer of technology. Nikki, you said we teach them and they do it in Vietnam and Thailand. We don't do it here because they don't transfer the technology. And my real story is this. When I wanted to be a farm leader, I had to run my farm. So I got permission from my family to run the farm. And I had sugar cane there. And I heard that the yield was 3.5 tons of sweet potato per hectare. And when I got this seed, my first yield was 38 hectares, not 3.5 tons. 38 hectares, 38 tons per hectare. Just because you get correct seed. Why am I not telling that? Because our 70,000 extension workers were devolved to the mayors, and most mayors use them for political reasons. We don't have extension workers anymore. So this is a disaster. Industry is having trouble. Like I know Ceramics, I know Edison Costello. He was our hero because I joined the FBI. As a matter of fact, Aranza is still there. And Edison Costello was the best in smuggling, and he succeeded. We followed him. But bottom line, the fact is that though industry sometimes hurts through things like smuggling, it's agriculture that hurts more. And the problem is that the farmers are really left alone and they're being abused. All these scams, fertilizer scam, pork scam, and all that. There's the farmers, these greedy people are getting the money. And sometimes, I ask them, no, you guys, do you use your brains? I think you're smart. I think you're doing conscious because you want to be corrupt. Because even the decrease of the tariff rates for pork, they went from 35 to 5. I said, why? To increase the imports. Okay, if you're a businessman like Nikki and Cora, you know this now, and I used to be a salesperson in Xerox America, right? If you bring it down from 35, right? Okay, you might have bring it down. But a salesman, you give him 10% bonus, he'll work. 20% he'll work harder. 30% he'll work harder. But within 30 and 50%, he cannot work any harder anymore. So why give the extra 20? That's what we did. Why don't you use your brains? Because every penny that you take harms the farm, harms our producers. They cannot compete. Why you go to 5? Why don't you go to 10 or 20? Have you ever done sensitive analysis? No. Why don't they teach that to you in economics? Of course, I'm an economics major. But are you using common sense here? Or are you just pretending to be stupid, right? Okay, because basically they're not stupid. They know what they're doing, but sometimes they're not competent, right? And so agriculture really saved them, Nikki. We got to save them. So I hope you take your passion for helping industry like the steel bars that are abusing us. Oh, Nikki. Okay, I just wrote the letter now. So in fact, I talked to the new incoming Secretary of Industry about this steel bars which you're fighting. The record is that of the firms we looked at, okay, 90% violating. And the record is that of the complaints we had with tests, they only penalized 2%. 2% of what we caught. And what we catch, we have lab test results and all that stuff, right? And when I did this first, they had 6 bodyguards, all with machine guns to protect me. And I had my own gun. And I had a card. I was a member of the President's Security Guard because the people corrupt were the DTI and they were in codes with the military. So they said they'd kill me. I said, I'm an activist. I'm used to that. And also the president said, no, they're really going to kill you. So they gave me an extra car, 6 bodyguards, machine guns. I had my own gun because they were making money at the expense of the poor consumer, because steel bars were going to fall in a case of an earthquake. So I fought them. And I remember De Lima, PESA director, said, how come you caught them? Because they're my subordinates. I said, because I use different techniques. See, I'm a fox. I'm a fox, right? I use techniques like radio. And then with them was the military, and the military were going to kill me. Anyway, to make a long story short, I had my gun, they had machine guns and all that. And finally, I couldn't find them, so they let go. But it's coming up again because it's bad again now. The steel bar, Nikki, I know you're looking at this now, and Edison Costello was our hero. Yeah.
Actually, also, I would say, I think that the steel bars issue is something that is going to stare us more in the face the minute there is a 7.5 earthquake. And the JICA study just purely shows that in fact 30% of the buildings are going to be either damaged or severely damaged, and it can bring about 35,000 to 80,000 dead. And this was done in 2004, I believe, or some years back. So the population in Manila was not even as big as today's population. But I think that's the subject of another discussion. But
Yeah.
right now, I understand that you were mentioning about Vietnam. Vietnam came out of a quarter of a century war. So much of its land had been poisoned by the Americans in the form of Agent Orange or whatever other chemical warfare that was used in Vietnam to totally create devastation. And yet, they're there maybe to overtake us if they haven't yet, but they're on their way to, depending on the statistics that you're looking at. And why is this? I think it's because they know and are able to define what their national interest is. And they're not surrendering this. They're not abdicating their rights. And more importantly, they decide for themselves what's best for themselves. When the retail trade was going to be liberalized during our time, I recall I voted no to it. And there were only a few of us. I think Ernie Maceda was one of them. Maybe Tito Soto was one of them. I can't recall if it was Bobby Tanyada or somebody else who was on our side. But we lost because the majority voted yes to it. No? Because they were marketing free trade as something that will set us free. Although studies will show that all over the world, free trade has kept people in bondage. There are very few that are able to make a killing out of it, but the rest, especially because we were unprepared and did nothing almost since that time to this day to prepare our industrialists, so that we ended up with our own human beings, citizens, as our number one export product, not any products at all. So when you talk of ASEAN and you talk of free trade, etc., if they're going to dump their products on us, what are we going to dump on them? There's no reciprocity. There's nothing that you can trade except your people, and that's all the talent. That's the talent. That's the what do you call the ace that we supposedly have. Because of course our people are better educated. They're more exposed to the ways of the West and the ways of the East as well. And yet, this is modern day exploitation because that is the commodity that you have. And yet in Vietnam, so many manufacturers have moved to Vietnam. They're even now going to Cambodia, to Laos, to other countries that before they were not looking at. Because we had the initial advantage of being easy to train, easy to teach, and English speaking, etc., etc. Communication was much easier in the Philippines. And yet we lost out to all of this. We could not be where we are if all those that went there establish themselves here. Can you imagine all those estates, industrial estates that they have there, if those were here? Obviously, they're not here. That's why we're where we are in this rut, So I think that not just manufacturing. I understand that there was a recent importation of several thousand tons of fish.
Yes.
Recently.
Oh, dati noon, pork.
We have 7,000 islands. And our coastline could be 2-3 times longer than the United States if you put it together. I mean, the length of our coastlines. And so what happens is importing fish.
They violated the law, Nikki. There's a case against them for that because in the law you're supposed to at least have a meeting with the private sector. They had no meeting and they just authorize it. So there's a case in court on that. But the question, of course, is this: why did they abolish the International Trade Committee? That's really ridiculous, right? Why?
But who did? Sino?
The last 2 years it was abolished.
So, present administration. Pero Ernie, ito lang
Not only that, can I say something else? They also abolished the... Okay. I'm a member of the public-private sector thing, and I saw this corruption. And that's why I left government. I don't know if you know this, but I left government precisely because they want me to approve something I didn't want. So what happened is they got my assistant secretary. He stole my money, gave it to this guy. I put him somewhere. Then they called me up and they said, bring him back. And I said, over my dead body. So in fact, they killed me because over my dead body. So they pushed me in a higher position. I quit, no? But this is what happened, no? Okay. The COA report shows that they have 22 billion in unliquidated funds. Nobody knows about this, right? They hear about Napoles. That's nothing. It's 22 billion. Nobody knows. They're hiding the truth, right? And I claim they did it because they abolished the budget committee that I recommended. Our budget committee with the private sector going to the provinces and inspecting. And when we go there, they get scared. We're inspecting. When they stopped us, they became corrupt, right? And I tried to save that obviously by saying you don't know about this, right? But 22 billion, that is really absurd. And
Huge.
of course,
Yeah, yeah.
there's another 12 billion not used. It's okay, maybe that's inefficiency, maybe pandemic. But when you unliquidated expenses, and then I brought this up again 2 months ago, right? And they said, well, we have a reason. Come on, it's been 1.5 years. I want to help you. You won't give me an explanation. I think there's nothing more. And then they said, oh, that's ideal. Did you read the core report? I mean, first of all, not do you know? And when I talk to government people, I say they saw, for example, these smuggled carrots, right? And they say they're gonna look at health. Are you kidding? That's smuggling because carrots are not allowed. Do you know your job? You're supposed to be anti-smuggling. Do you know your job? Okay. How come me? I know this job and you won't let me help because once they asked me to help, and I said yes, and they said you limited health and safety. I want undervaluation. I want misdeclaration. The way Nikki Cosseteng is saying, no, di ba? I mean, it's tiles, they say it's plastic toys, and they won't let me do it, right? Okay? I mean, it is evil. It is intentional. So our
Yeah.
country, we're fighting for, it's not ignorance, it's evil already we're fighting, right? And as Nikki
It's
said,
not ignorance. No, no. I
evil.
don't want to justify and say it's ignorance. No, they're extremely smart. They're
Yeah.
extremely intelligent. And they're using this kind of intelligence,
Yeah.
to bring about this kind of suffering. What
Right.
we are seeing, I think, is the needy versus the greedy. Yung parang, yun ang
Obvious,
nangyari sa
obvious.
atin. Needy versus greedy yan. Talagang greed.
I love that.
And they use their intelligence to they use the intelligence to really
be more
stick
greedy.
stick a knife into people's necks. But
And
they
they
don't realize this. They don't realize that this can create bigger problems. It's you and I can afford the price of food. How much can you eat in a meal? How much? How much rice can you eat? How much pork or chicken or carrots can you eat in a
Not
meal?
even a cup of rice.
Now,
Anyway.
what I'm saying is when people cannot afford this and there is a breakdown of law and order, what is the solution of the state? Send the military, send the bombs, send the guns, send the truncheons, send the water cannons. We went through all of that already. When people are hungry and you're trying to say, hey, listen, look at us. This is something. But the hungry people do not have the connections to come to Cora Alma de Leon's show. They cannot come here. So somebody has to speak for them. And when you do, you're either a communist or you are either an insurrectionist, you're a troublemaker, and you're a nanggugulo. Diba? So anong sagot sa nanggugulo? Babarilin mo yun nanggugulo. Ikukulong mo yun nanggugulo. Labas mo yung water cannons mo. We went through all of this already. And it's going to happen again.
I don't know if you know this, Nikki. They had a warrant for arrest for me for subversion for 9 years. Do you know that? I had a warrant for arrest for subversion for 9 years. And all I did was write articles. Okay, what I'm saying is this. That's why, though I know industry much better, I'm with agriculture. Because, when they want to exploit us, they exploit the farmers and fishermen more than the industry. It's because they have no money and they're not educated to fight. That's why I've taken on their fight. And believe me, I've chosen a more dangerous position. But it is what we need to do. So I've now with Cora de Leon and all that. For example, I just talked to you about this smuggling thing, right? Okay. And basically, it's programs like this. We hope the new administration will wake up because yung RCEP, I told them in RCEP, I said, just do these basic things, right? And we won't fight you, right? And they haven't even started to do that, right? I mean, they haven't started. I mean, it's so easy. Just create this structure which will have transparency. There's no transparency. And that's why I was surprised when Dominguez said, si Ernie, okay si Ernie, but hindi ko sa akin, Santo yung nag-intay para sa letter mo. Sir Gordon said, take them to Ombudsman. I said, if I take them to Ombudsman, will something happen? I mean, maybe something will happen. I'm just saying, but I said, I like to be nice to you, maybe you don't know, etc., etc. But I called you up and you said, although I told you to talk to me, you still didn't talk to me. Why? Why? Oh, because they said it. So I said, maybe I'll call on sanitary. In other words, what we have, Nikki, is a task of fighting for transparency. But even if you're transparent, if the powers are corrupt and evil, what can you do? We just have to continue fighting because in the case of smuggling, see, we won. We won because we got 25% increase in the and they abolished that. Evil people came in. I remember when Teves came in, I said, Teves, you replace Angeles, but frankly, you can't do zilch. You can't do zilch because you're beholden. I mean, the problem is that you don't have a committee with private sector. You abolish, there's no more other departments. It's totally useless, and he did nothing. I mean, I also like him too, but you have to know the power structure. I know the power structure, right? Because I was in government, no, and I know it pretty well. I was secretary of flagship programs, right? I get the biggest things, and the reason Ramos gave me the Golden Heart Award is because first thing happened when I came in, all those guys handed office, they all disappeared. Second, I put the private sector to look at everything, etc., and we straightened it out. The question is, will they allow us to do that? They did not allow me, but they kicked me out, right? I mean, they came upstairs, I had to quit. And now we'll see if this new government will allow this. We'll see, right? Because actually, if you ask me, what happened in international trade is a total disaster because they abolished us and couldn't talk, right? And then they say there's consultation. I said, will you stop lying already?
Oh, yeah.
No. I told him, don't say that because you're not even in this department. You can't say that. He kept on saying it. So I said, actually, you're a nice guy, but why do you keep on lying? I already told you that's not true. Don't say that. My God, you're not even from DA. How can you say that? I already told you that's a lie. You keep on saying it because they say there's consultation. There's none. As a matter of fact, they kept us in the dark. I mean, it's totally disgusting. I mean, many people want to leave this country, right? I mean, let's face it, right? They're fed up. But we cannot be fed up. It's our only country we have to fight with. And Cora, you when you're in government, you change a lot. You improve your department. You become a shining star. Nikki fights in Congress. She fights in the private sector. We must continue. We're few, but we must not give up. We must continue, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. For example, in smuggling, I won for a while, then I lost. We'll see. Then we tried again, we won, then they killed us again. I mean, they stopped us. We'll see if this one will allow us, right?
Yeah.
So we just have to continue fighting and hope for the best. But we do have some victories. Nikki, you have big victories. I saw it when you're a congressperson. And Cora, you changed that department. You did great. So actually, even though we lose, we also win. And it's our country, right? We should just continue trying and win the small battles. Maybe one day we'll win the bigger ones, right? But right now we're losing it. But we don't know because we just have to try. Because if you help a few people, that's good enough. I remember General Almonte called me to his house. Ernie, I heard you quit. I said, I didn't quit. They fired me. They brought me to the higher level. No. Why do you do that? I said, unless you're really straight, and he said, well, I don't know if they'll allow you to be really straight. Well, I lasted 12 years really straight, right? So we don't know. We just have to do what we should. And you read your program, gives the truth to people. Question now is we must do better with our social media, etc. We just have to be smarter than evil people. And right now, they're smarter than us right now. Because we're few, right? But we have to fight.
Any for a while.
Do I know what it's like to be fired? Well, I could not be fired because I was elected, and that's the reason why I said I would like to serve only as an elected official and not as an appointed official. As an appointed official, I will be out of there and fired in 2 days. Maybe not even 2 days. I'm not even aspiring for that. But I remember when I was chairman of the Trade and Industry Committee on Trade in the Senate.
Yes.
And because I was against the approval of the retail trade, opening up the retail trade, liberalization of retail trade, they removed me as chairman of the committee so that it can go to someone who will approve the retail trade. And now, where are all the retailers now?
Yes.
Now what? A lot of people have lost their shirts. They have nowhere to go. Some of them have just gone abroad and just work as OFWs. They were running small businesses.
Yes.
Sure, there is so much emphasis on small and medium scale. That's part of the road. It's going on and going on. But really, where are the small and medium scale? That's the same sector you want to tax all over again. If you only collect all the taxes, it's not just food. It's not just tiles or other such manufactured goods. It's not just that. What about oil? What about the smuggling of oil companies that are, they're not paying the right taxes? Even that. So now I hear that they're going to start sending iron ore from Australia and start cleaning it up here before it goes to Japan or anywhere else, because it leaves a lot of pollution. So the Japanese don't want that iron ore from Australia to go there and have them clean it up there. They want it cleaned here, and we're going to accept it here. I mean, why do we want to keep shooting ourselves, not in the foot, but in the face?
Good question.
We just
Pero
have to,
awal isa lang nagtanong sa atin, ano? Kasi bakit daw yung party list, wala naman sector na nire-represent. Sila rin, mga politiko na. Ito, this might be out of the blue, pero nangyayari ito. Corruption sa party list representation. The premise is for the marginalized sector to be represented, but how come we are seeing winning party list congressmen without any sector representing? Sila rin. That's a comment. Ernie?
That's a good observation, I think.
of course, we all believe that, and hopefully the new government will change it. I mean, we always hope for the new government so that it does well. And actually, we should continue hoping. And when they don't do it, are there any sectors that we can influence? Because for me, I've decided that each one of us is given a role. And though we will lose the big ones, if there's small ones you can win, we should do that. Because what I don't want is for people to give up. We should just continue. And you can be very frustrated. But if you try hard, you win the small ones. And if you help a few people, that's good enough than helping no one. You know, for me, I'm just saying that we just do what we can. You know, Nikki, I've been at the lowest point in my life recently, you know, because our entire life we devote to a vision, no? And when you don't get it, we feel really depressed. But we just have to pray to God to give us grace and motivation, because it's really depressing. But you know, there are good people in government.
Yeah, and while we're praying, Ernie, while we're praying, I hope that God doesn't kind of like fall asleep sometimes. Maybe he's tired already. You gotta give him a break, you know. I mean, to say you just keep praying and praying and praying and then do the rotten things. And this is not what God wants. You go to church every day or every other day or whatever it is, and then continue what you're doing. So I don't think God likes that. I mean, I don't know, unless you have a different God that he will just, you know, keep staying awake and staying alive.
My view of God is God doesn't intervene. I mean, I have a different version. my view of God is that He's not around. And therefore,
it's you. It's people on earth.
It's us who have to move. And sometimes we get stressed, so we just pray for guidance and all that. And we have to do what. And when God does funny things, and I say, I don't know, I'm not smart. I don't understand your view. But we just have to do what we think God wants us to do.
Yeah.
No, all I'm saying is I want to bottom. It's very discouraging, and it's easier not to do good anymore. Not just take over yourself. That's easier. But what's happened was that we were given privileges when we were born and raised, right? We got education. And we've got to do something so that we help others. So we should just try it. And when we fail, we feel depressed. We just try and try. But there are good people in government. There are. And in fact, there are some good things. For example, pangtawid, no? It's good. There's a lot of corruption. It's good. So we just have to count on the good and look at people like Cora and Nick, you know, and and you, Senator Costeng, and get inspiration and continue the fight. Yeah, because we're helping a few. I mean, I'm saying we have helped quite a few. So let's just continue. It's not the millions we want to help. We were in total power, but we're getting there. Right? It's
not easy.
Oh yeah, it's frustrating.
It's not easy.
Yeah,
and sometimes you know it's unfortunate, but it's real.
Yeah.
Sometimes the very sector that you want to help
are the ones bashing you.
That way. No, they may not understand it that way.
Yes, we don't understand. Many times
that's the difficult part, no? Sometimes, I mean to say, you want to call attention to these issues so that things can be done. But other people look at it as if you call attention to these issues, you are an anti-government person.
Yes.
But precisely it is for government to make you feel that government is working for you. You know, so when you say, hey, this thing is not right, they should say thank you for pointing it out. We are so busy, we didn't see it that way.
And now you're telling
us. Thank you for pointing it out, because pagod mo rin yan. Humihingal ka rin, Cora. January 29 pa tayo dito eh. January 29, anong araw na ngayon, di ba?
At saka yun, birthday ng nanay ko. My mother only finished second year high school, but she was an entrepreneur. May tindahan sa Pasay, may jeepney na nagpa-apply ng Paranaque to pa. While my father was a government worker to become city assessor of Pasay City and retired as city assessor, but earned his money doing real estate work in Paranaque, yung mga villages na yon. Kaya alam ko you have to work hard to be able to achieve what you want. Pero
No shortcuts.
Pero dito
short-
naniniwala ako na why am I here in radio? Because I realized na unless people say what they don't want to hear, nobody's going to do anything because sasabihin nila pare-pareho lang naman eh. Hindi pwede tayong pare-pareho. Daliri natin, iba-iba nga tayo eh. Pero dapat, ang pinupurso natin, that which is for the good of the many, for the good of all. Pag hindi ganon, iisipin lang sarili. And I think, dito makikita natin, yung mga taong sumasali dito sa programa na ito are those people who believe. But first, you must believe. Naniniwala ka na may mangyayari dito. Meron pa daw tayong 8 minutes, Nikki. So, ikaw muna ang at si Ernie, tig na lang kayo. Tig 3 minutes kayo pareho. Ako na lang ang 2 minutes. Nikki, your 3 minutes. Wala si Nikki. Nikki, 3 minutes. Parting shots. Narinig mo? Ernie, ikaw muna.
Okay, well, first of all, when I meet people like Cora and Nikki and I know their lives, I'm inspired. When I'm depressed and I see the evil people all over the place really fighting us instead of helping us, I'm depressed. So what keeps my spirits up? It's when I meet people like Nikki and Cora who fight for what's right. And I think that's what we should do. We should talk to people like Cora and Nikki because they can give us encouragement that we're not alone. Hindi tayo nag-iisa, no? And basically, something if you help one person, you've left the world a better place. So I know you want to help millions, but just help one, right? And you've left the world a better place rather than doing nothing. So I like to suggest to all the listeners, please continue, even though you're pressed, look for a place where you can help. And even though they stop you and actually fight you, look for the good you can do. Because look at Jesus Christ, right? He was a loser, right? And he died. Later on, he succeeded. Okay, we're losing. It's okay. But there are some spots that we can help. If you can help a few, please try and do it. And that's why I've chosen this path. I should really be in industry because that's where I'm trained. I've chosen agriculture. That's where they need me. And it's more danger, more difficulty, but that's where God wants us to go. We just ask where God wants us to go. He wants to go where we can help. So Cora and Nikki, thank you for being there, for going on radio. You can actually forget the radio and have fun, but you're doing this. So I admire. Keep it up.
Nikki, final words.
Yeah, thank you, Cora. Thank you, Ernie. It's very valuable to have you. This is just your first time. I hope you're not going to give up on us. Cora, please have a standing invitation for Ernie because maybe in the next program, in the next show, we can now go into the details. So we'll do it one by one. First, the bigas, then the maybe meat, products, poultry, vegetables, etc., etc. And it's not only as far as planting is concerned. It's also where to plant, how to plant, and why do you have to limit the areas for planting?
Yes.
The farmer will only see, my neighbor was able to buy a tricycle by planting beans, for example. So let me plant more beans. And then the price of the beans goes down to a few bucks. So it all devastates the entire system. They have to understand that when they are told, you only need to have 3 hectares of beans in your area. The minute you have 5 hectares, lugi na kayo lahat, di ba? Patay na yan. So, makinig din kayo. Kasi, sometimes it's hard to say, the farmer only sees his immediate environment. But the Department of Agriculture has technology, has equipment, has IT, has whatever else to see it from above, you see. So, he has to share that information and the farmers have to believe and trust that this is the right way. So that everybody can make money because not everybody needs to grow beans to make money. Some people say, oh, tomatoes are making money. Let's all plant tomatoes. Then it's only 5 pesos per kilo. Diba? So wala mangyayari pagka ganyan tayo. There has to be a higher entity and that's government. And if government fails, then it has failed the farmers.
Mm.
So it's not just the production part. It's also how do you get that to market? By the time it leaves your farm, it's 1 ton. By the time it gets to the market, it's only 3/4 left because it's dried up or whatever it is, lost. So many other things, the packaging, the distribution, the retailing, so many other things that are now part and parcel of agriculture. Previously, it was just planting and harvesting and selling. That's it. But now everybody, it's practically just one basket of things to do, and it's all part of agriculture, including putting a label on it.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very complex issue, and Ernie knows it inside out. I think maybe Ernie could even recommend other guests who can validate what we're talking about. The point is, other countries are protecting themselves. We are not, number one. Two, other countries may not want to sell to us unless we pay the price. We don't have that money, and the exchange rate is going to kill us. And number three, we seem not to like to listen to bad news, or we seem not to like people telling us what's real. We want the fantasy world, and we want like fairy godmothers to come in and move, wave their wands, and things can turn good for all of us. Meanwhile, we're gonna get caught flat-footed. I remember the time when China decided not to sell any flour to anybody. They don't allow the exportation of flour. China. Why? They want it for their own siopaw, and they want it for their own bread, and they don't want to export, and that's their right. They're growing it, and they're even buying from outside to feed themselves. If their food security is 2 years food security for China, what is our food security? We don't even know. The Department of Agriculture or the government should tell us our food security is good for 21 days. That's it.
Yeah.
Diba?
Rice.
Para alam natin. You people are told, deposit your money in the bank. What? To make 0.0001% or something like that? You might as well put your money in food. If you put your money in even what? Hot dogs, maybe tuna, canned tuna, or whatever, corned beef, even toilet paper, you will make more money in a period of 1 year than putting your money in the bank. Seriously. I mean, but you have to know the facts so that you can make decisions, properly. Otherwise, when you wake up one day, pork is 300 pesos. And the last time you woke up, it was just 250. I mean, this matters a lot. This is 10% of your minimum daily wage for the price of 1 kilo of pork difference. And now it's 20% because it's now 300 plus. And previously, it was 150.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
From Elizabeth de los Reyes of Tarlac, halos wala na pong farmers ngayon. Ngayon, puro landowners, sabing ganon. So ngayon, ang final words ko, alam nyo, magagawa natin lahat ng bagay kung di tayo talaga nag-iisa. Kailangan sama-sama tayong isipin, sabihin at gawin kung ano yung nararapat. Again, isipin, sabihin, gawin. Hindi pwedeng iisipin lang, hindi pwedeng sasabihin lang, kailangan gawin. And I think this afternoon has been that. Nagsasabi na tayo kung ano yung mga dapat gawin at gagawin natin to. Kailangan nakakaisa tayo para magawa yung mga dapat magawa. Thank you, Ernie. Thank you, Nikki. It has been a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thank you, thank you.
Make sure Ernie comes back, and make sure Ernie comes back. There's a lot, that a powerful house of a brain in there. That's why, don't lose it.
Yes.
And that has to be shared to your listeners. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you.
Remember, food security ba pinag-uusapan natin? Food security. Thank you, Ernie. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.